To Kill a Mockingbird, Chapter 2 Summary and Discussion. So at the beginning of Chapter 2, Dill leaves Jim and Scout. He leaves Maycomb, and he goes back to Meridian, Alabama. And then Scout begins talking about school and how she's really excited. She's waited a long time to be in school because Jim is in school, so part of her kind of wants to be like Jim. So she's going to begin the first grade. And then we find out a little bit about her teacher, Miss Caroline Fisher. And Miss Caroline Fisher is from North Alabama. She's been to college. She's about 21 years old, and she's from the city. So when she comes into Maycomb, she's unfamiliar with the community and the students, and this is going to be a problem of understanding culture and local color in a town. And so we begin the chapter with Miss Caroline reading the class a story of imaginative literature. And this is problematic because most of the, as Scout would describe it, flower-skirted first grade and denim-shirted first grade who are wearing their ragged clothes, they don't understand imaginative literature, which is going to be like animals talking. So, for example, when she's reading about cats talking to one another, they don't get it. The students don't get it. And so she doesn't understand that most of these children work and they don't have time to read. Scout, however, does have time to read. She sits in her father's lap every night while he reads the newspaper, and he moves his finger along every line as he reads, and she follows along with him. And so Miss Caroline basically reprimands Scout for knowing how to read, which we can't imagine a teacher getting on to a student for knowing how to read. It just seems silly. However, Miss Caroline has been taught this new mythology about teaching and learning. So this is going to be a little background information for education. This is going to be in the progressive era, when we have John Dewey and his new theories about hands-on learning. And so instead of Scout learning her old ways, Miss Caroline wants her to embrace her new ways of learning, and she tells Scout not to read anymore at home. And we find this problematic, and there's an important quote in here because Scout doesn't really remember how she learned how to read. She says that she climbs up in Atticus's lap and she watches him read. And then she says, "Until I feared I would lose it, I never loved to read. One does not love breathing." So again, we don't really think about breathing, right? It's just something we do. So she's never thought about reading. It's just something she does. And so now she's overanalyzing it and wondering how she even began to start reading. Then we move on to Scout telling Jim about Miss Caroline, and Jim tells Scout about the new way of learning and says just embrace it. The whole school is going to learn that way soon. And then that afternoon, or that morning before lunchtime, Miss Caroline tells everybody to get their lunches out on the table, and she sends them off to lunch, the ones that go out in the town, and then she realizes that Walter Cunningham does not have a lunch, and so she tries to offer him a quarter for lunch, and he won't take it, and everybody knows that Walter Cunningham will not take the quarter because he can't pay her back. And so Miss Caroline does not know this because it is, again, it's local color. It's understanding the community, who's who, what's what. And so Walter Cunningham is not going to take that money because he can't pay her back. And so Scout stands up. She defends Walter. She gets in trouble with Miss Caroline. And then we see that Miss Caroline, at the end of the chapter, she actually is upset. She sinks down into her chair and she buries her head in her arms, and then Scout looks in timeout, which is where Miss Caroline put her. She looks over at Miss Caroline and she says, "Well, you know what? I would have felt sorry for her. She was a pretty little thing." And so in that sense, you know, Miss Caroline, she's learning a new community, new people, and Scout's really not considering things from Miss Caroline's point of view at this point in the novel. And so that's where we end off here.